Buying a house as a recent grad. Let's talk about it. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Alexis if you are new here. Today's episode of Vlogmas is a LexTalk edition. So LexTalk is basically where I choose whatever topic or really whatever I want to sit down and do a sit down video and talk to you guys about. That's what I'm gonna do. So that's what LexTalk is about. Kind of like TEDx Talk and then kind of like Let's Talk, you know what I mean? So today's video for LexTalk is going to actually focus around kind of like my house series and what my channel is mostly been about, specifically for buying a house as a recent grad. So I actually thought to do this video after someone reached out to me on Instagram. Her name was Nia Robinson. Shout out to you. She reached out to me and just asked me a few questions. She's in college right now. So I thought like, oh, I guess I haven't really touched on some of these things in my videos. So it's one of those videos today, guys. As I always say, I am nowhere near a professional, a lender, a real estate agent, or anything. I am specifically just here to talk about my experience and hopefully inspire and motivate other people to make the leap of faith for themselves. So without further ado, here are some, I guess, tips or things to keep in mind when wanting to buy a house as a recent grad. So I graduated college when I was 21. I graduated in May of 2018. And then I worked for a year and a half, got a new job, and then I bought my house. So that's kind of my story. My story, I know, is a little bit different than like the standard story, and I was super lucky and super blessed, so it's not gonna be the same for everybody, but here we are. Okay, so Nia said, "Hi, I hope this DM finds you well. I've been inspired by you being a homeowner. Thank you. I am a sophomore in college and I desire to do the same when I graduate. I know the biggest advice to give is to save money and build credit, but I have been thinking about the income aspect for a recent or soon to be grad. I had been wondering how much more the lenders are looking for a buyer to make in comparison to the mortgage. 3 times more? And how did you go about getting an internship/job during your college years to prove you made income? This is something I desire to know as I began to go about this process. I desire to have an internship and a hire already lined up for me. Also, for how long did they desire you to have solid income? A year prior? 2 years prior? Thank you in advance." Shout out to you, Nia. You have inspired me to create this video, girl. But basically, I'll just let you guys know what I said back to her and then just kind of candidly talk out of my mind and out of my experience what my thoughts are around buying as a recent grad. Basically, first I let her know I couldn't necessarily remember my lender saying I needed to make a certain times more the mortgage. I know that apartments do that, and I think my first apartment did that. I needed to make, I think, 2 or 3 times more the monthly rent for my gross income or something like that, but I don't recall that being the case for my lender. I know a big thing was the debt to income ratio or income to debt ratio, whichever way it goes. And I talked about this in another video. It's basically your monthly debt payments divided by your monthly gross income, and that's how they get that magical debt to income ratio number. And a lot of times that's how lenders are kind of measuring your ability to make back payments on a loan. So that was kind of the main thing that I remember as being a trigger word, and things that multiple lenders, because I talked to 2 different ones, that they brought up that is kind of a factor, but not necessarily saying like, oh, I needed to make 3 times more a monthly mortgage. Second, as far as the job or internship aspect, so from my experience, I had 1 small internship in college. I only was in college for 3 years too, so my time was expedited and it was shorter, so I didn't have a lot of time to make as much of an impact as I wanted to. But as far as internships, I literally had 1 internship. It was super short internship for a marketing agency or a marketing company in New York. So that was the only internship that I had. But other than that, I made sure to stay involved on campus and in college, and making sure that I held positions on those like e-boards. So for instance, I was in the Black Business Student Association and I was the marketing director there. So although I didn't have an actual marketing job at the time, that helped me. I put that on my resume for sure. And that helped me sell myself to my soon-to-be first job and let them know, like, hey, like, I understand marketing because I've done this, this, and this. Whether it aligned with the job or not, it definitely helped me. So I would say don't be discouraged if you feel like you don't have a lot of internships to back you up. There are still ways that you can still be competitive without, you know, securing an internship. Although I know that it would help you. So I got my first position actually from a career fair, first or second career fair that I had gone to, because I was so nervous about an elevator pitch and all that stuff. I was super scared, but that is where I met my first employer. So I did my elevator pitch. She really liked me, and then I went through a 3-month-long interview process and then essentially got the job like 5 months before I graduated. So I was super, super lucky to have secured something before graduating, but I know that's not always the case. But I would definitely say if you are in college and you know that you have longer term goals and you know that it's going to depend on having a job right out of college, definitely make sure that you are using your resources, you're networking, you're going to those career fairs and things like that, so that you can, you know, have those opportunities hopefully fall into your lap. As far as like a look back on how much income they needed to look at, I believed that they needed my last like 2 years of W-2s or of income or something like that. But I hadn't been at my first job for 2 years yet. I had only been there for a 1.5 years. So I didn't even have a full 2 years, and I didn't have an actual like real job in college. But basically I had to show proof of my last, I think it was last 2 years of income, as well as like my bank statements for the last, my last like 2 bank statements or something like that. Basically, they just needed to see that I had a stable and credible source of income, one, which I think that's what a lot of YouTubers also say sometimes is their issue with getting approved for loans and things like that, is that YouTube, sometimes it's hard for some companies and lenders and things like that for them to see it as an actual like source of income. So I had to provide that, as well as like bank statements and a whole bunch of other assets, just to let them know that I would have a credible source of income. But then in my situation and in my case, I got a new job where I was getting paid more. So I made sure to give them all of that information that they needed to know to say like, hey, I don't have a W-2 for this job yet, but this is going to be my salary. And they can kind of map that out to what that would become my new like debt to income ratio, if that makes sense. So that kind of touched on that initial question. But as far as like some other things that I think of, although I was out of college for about 1.5 years, I still consider that like a recent grad. But some tips and things that I maybe not have even like did myself, but I think it could have been even more helpful. For me, I wasn't even thinking at all about buying a house. I wasn't even thinking about buying a house when I was talking to lenders asking to get pre-approved. I didn't think I was actually going to do it. So I definitely wasn't thinking about it when I just graduated college, but you know, things work out the way they do. But if you are thinking about it, I think the biggest thing that you can do is find little ways that you can save. And I know it sounds repetitive and cliche, but definitely do it because it's an expensive process. So first, if you can, and if you can bear it, I couldn't bear having a roommate just because I loved having my own space. But if you can bear to live with somebody else or rent one place and have a roommate, or even stay at home with your parents, like don't be ashamed or be afraid to go back home after you graduate. Like if you can live for free while you save up and rack up money, that is so great, and you should not be ashamed of that. So if you can find a way for you to at least cut out that big chunk of monthly expense, which is rent, definitely try to do so, whether that's going back with your parents or having a roommate. I personally didn't do that, so it does make things a little bit harder, but I also didn't do a lot of like extracurricular things like going out on the weekends. Like I was a homebody. I wasn't spending money a lot on myself at that time, like shopping sprees or drinks or anything like that. So I was always constantly saving money. If it wasn't going straight to bills and I didn't need it for food or something, I literally was like, okay, this is saved up money. So definitely save. As far as credit goes, I'm also, like I said, I'm not the best or the smartest person when it comes to credit. But I will say for my particular instance, I also didn't have, and kind of to backtrack, so the loan that I got was an FHA loan, which is one of the easiest ones to get into, or the easier ones to get into. They don't have, like, it's, their thresholds, I feel like, for things are lower than others. So, but I am also in the process of refinancing my loan to another FHA loan, but if you guys want to know more about that, if it comes to fruition how it's supposed to, I'll definitely keep you guys updated. But anyways, so yeah, so I have an FHA loan, and you know, the requirements are a little bit easier to get into. But as far as credit goes, for me, I didn't have so many forms of credit. I did have a student loan, which I didn't end up paying until 6 months after, so they give you that like gateway. I only have federal loans. I did not have any private loans, so I don't know if that payback, you know, requirement is different. But yeah, so when I started paying back, I made consistent and constant payments. I was only paying the minimum, so basically just the interest, but I made sure that I was constantly making a payment and I was never late every single month. So I feel like that definitely helped my credit score. Also, I have other forms of credit in the form of credit cards. At the time, I didn't have a car note or really much else, but I did have those few credit card accounts, so that kind of helped me establish some credit as well. But like I said, with an FHA loan, I feel like it's a little bit easier to get into, especially for like first home buyers. So definitely check that out if you're wondering, like, you know, about if you have enough credit established and so on and so forth. But I would also say, if you know that your first job right out of college is not super high paying or it's not consistent, be careful with how much debt you accrue as far as like credit cards and things like that, because then your debt to income ratio is, you know what I mean, like it's gonna impact that. So things to think about. So yes, I hope that this was helpful, you guys. If there's any other questions or things that you guys think about and you want my opinion on, like I keep saying, I am not a professional. I literally have only gone through this one time, and it was within the past year. So I'm not an expert. All I do is come on here and tell you guys my opinion based off of my experience and try to give tips based off of what I think I could have done better at or learned from. So if there's any other type of topics, whether it's about home buying or just like my opinion on anything, literally anything, that's what Let's Talk is about. Like, let's just go ahead and talk about it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below any more Let's Talk video ideas. Like I said, this is my Vlogmas schedule, so if any of those themes interest you, make sure you tune in. Make sure you're subscribed also if you aren't already, and turn on your post notifications to be updated every time I upload. And until next time, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.